Welcome to the UK, home to over 90,000 restaurants, more than 100 different cuisines from around the world, and over 200 Michelin stars. Most people are usually on the hunt for 5-star restaurants as an example of British excellence. But today, I'm flipping the script to find restaurants that could only be described as a crime to the culinary arts. I've curated a list of some of the worst reviewed restaurants I've ever seen, and I'm going to put them to the test to see if they're really as bad as people say they are. First up, we've got Hussies in Skegness, a seaside themed restaurant where cooked to perfection clearly means something different.
In the 210 one-star reviews, people say the chips are embarrassing, the food is all undercooked and swimming in oil. I don't know about you, but personally, I think in a seaside town, your fish and chips should be fresh and it should be excellent. And if it's not, there's something seriously wrong. But it couldn't be that bad, could it?
I got seated and ordered myself a fish and chips, but was it going to be the overcooked mess people were saying it is?
For everyone saying that it's overcooked, I'd almost argue the complete opposite. The chips look fairly anemic. The fish looks crispy enough and not swimming in oil, so that's a good sign.
But what about the price? The people of TripAdvisor were quick to point out that this place is far from value for money.
In terms of the price, this did cost $13.50, which personally I think is a massive rip-off. You don't get any extras with it. You get sachets of sauce instead of a bottle, which for me is always a massive red flag. It doesn't look horrendous. The fish doesn't look fantastic and the chips are pretty anemic, but it doesn't look awful. I've certainly seen worse filming this video.
But everyone knows, when it comes to food, what matters most is the taste. So let's give it a try.
We'll try the fish first, shall we? Really thin batter and quite wet on the inside. It is haddock, so the flakes on the inside aren't going to be as big as you'd get with a cod, but it is looking sort of slightly undercooked, but let's give it a taste, shall we? It somehow tastes both undercooked and overcooked. Batter is so thin that it kind of just turns to a crisp and is completely flavourless. And then the fish is quite soggy, yet also quite dry. And again, just no flavour. For $13.50, I'd expect a massive piece of really well done fish. And this just isn't that. Let's try the chips. Now, first impressions, not great. They are very, very pale. For me, 2 more minutes in the fryer would have maybe turned them out a bit better. Just really dry. Really, really dry. Yeah, completely undercooked and as a result, really dry. They should be crispy on the outside and fluffy on the inside, but there's no crisp on the outside. And then they're almost hard in the middle because they haven't been cooked for long enough. Really quite disappointing. I think I've tried enough to give it a rating. For me, everything just isn't quite there. The chips, terrible. They're not cooked enough. They're not crispy enough. And they're so flavourless. The fish, the batter is just so thin and so flavourless that then it doesn't really cook evenly. The fish on the inside is still kind of soggy, whereas the batter has just dried to an absolute crisp. And for $13.50, you would expect more. Now, the restaurant itself, quite lovely. The staff are really friendly. The environment's really nice. Everything seems really clean. But the food just doesn't match the environment. And you come for the food, you don't come for the environment. So for me, really, really quite disappointing. And I think it's a 2 out of 5.
This next spot is better known for serving disappointment than dinner. This is Square Pizza.
Okay, so it's not a sit-in restaurant this time. I've actually got from a takeaway in the centre of Rotherham because I'm here filming another video where I'm trying 1-star hotels. Make sure you're subscribed so you see that one come out. So this is from a place called Square Pizza that has some absolutely shocking reviews.
The general consensus is that the orders are always late, they're always cold, and they're always wrong.
Well, I can tell you firsthand that this came 20 minutes early and I can feel the heat piping off of it.
So we're 0 for 2 so far, but did they get everything correct?
I got their deal for £13. You get any pizza of your choice. doner kebab and chips, and a bottle of Pepsi. That is absolutely ridiculous value, but is it all correct? So this should be a pepperoni pizza. It certainly is. That must mean that this is the doner and chips, and it is. And then it said a bottle of Pepsi, but I am so much happier that they sent me Pepsi Max because this is actually my favourite drink. And then I also added on a chili sauce and a garlic sauce. Could this be what they've messed up? Nope. But unfortunately, they have missed something. I requested utensils, and I've not got them. So now I've got an uncut pizza and doner and chips and no cutlery. So it might be a slightly messy meal. I think what I need to do is change out of the white. Okay, I think this is a much more appropriate outfit for what we're about to do. Let's get into it, shall we? So first and foremost, it's a pizza shop. So their pizza should be pretty good, right? Well, let's have a look. It doesn't look half bad. It's a square pizza, but I was assuming that, given the name. There's a decent amount of toppings, a solid amount of cheese. It even looks like there's some oregano sprinkled over it. Now, it's not been cut, but that's okay. Let's just give it a little go. It's a pretty thick crust. It feels kind of doughy, but the proof's in the pudding. A little bit floppy, a little bit doughy. Starting to cool down pretty quickly, so let's give it a go. Okay, yeah, very, very doughy. Like, soft. There's zero crunch on the bottom. There's zero crunch on the crust. But flavour-wise, it's not too bad. I think if it was cooked for a little bit longer, it would be a pretty good slice. It is also quite oily. You squeeze it, and you are getting a fair amount of oil dripping out of that. Would I order it again? Probably not. Is it terrible? No. Okay, time for the doner and chips now, and I can tell you off the bat, this is cold. But I also wouldn't have got it if it wasn't part of this deal that made it so cheap. So, can you really complain whenever it's that price? That depends if it's that bad. Let's see. I can tell you just from looking at it that that's frozen doner that's been steamed to heat it up. I mean, there's no colour on that. It's paper thin. It's really rubbery. Look, I could be wrong. It could just be the start of the cycle of the big doner. Let's taste it, shall we? No. No. That's all kinds of wrong. There's no seasoning. There's no real flavour other than just like chemicals. That tastes so fake. It tastes so wrong. That's really not pleasant. Okay, so the pizza's mid. The doner is awful. What about the chips? Fairly anemic. Really greasy. No crunch to it. Let's give it a taste. You just know that's come out of a packet and hasn't been fried for nearly long enough. I don't mind if a takeaway uses frozen chips. I get that it can be expensive and time consuming to make your own, but at least cook it for long enough. Because these, I mean, it's actually soggy. They might be worse than the doner because they're so much easier than the doner, and yet they're dreadful. Sauce time now. And one thing I absolutely love is whenever a takeaway makes its own sauces. I don't know if here does, but consistency wise, they don't look bad. Because we've got no cutlery, let's just have a little dip. Okay, it's not giving homemade because it's like really flavorful and you just don't tend to get that. You more get this sort of yogurt whenever it's homemade, but it's quite nice. And £1 for that little size, it's not too bad. Some places would charge you $2.50. The chili sauce, this could be homemade. Oh, oh, yeah, that really could be homemade because it's vile. Oh, I don't know what kind of chilies they're using or what kind of chilies the sauce company is using, but that is rancid. That's one of the worst chili sauce I've ever tried. Okay, the square pizza in Rotherham. It's got a 1.7 on Yale,
And if you're basing it just on the pizza, okay. But if you're basing it on anything else, that number to come down for me. Okay, all of the food showed up correctly. I know the utensils didn't, but that's whatever. All the food showed up correctly. And it didn't show up late. In fact, it showed up about 20 minutes early. But that could be because it was all so undercooked. I would rather it showed up late and wrong compared to how it did show up. Because everything was just kind of gross. The pizza, doughy. The doner, just weird. The chips, anemic and dreadful. These are not things that you can get wrong as a takeaway. These are fairly basic things. And it just fell flat. Despite how cheap it is, it's a waste of money. And that says a lot. Square pizza in Rotherham, 1 out of 5.
Finally, we've got mad for chicken, but according to the reviews, people are more mad about the chicken.
That's because this place apparently does chicken so dry that people compare it to the Sahara Desert. They also apparently do an alarmingly bad burger, reheat yesterday's chips, and have horrendously rude staff. But it couldn't be that bad, could it?
This place has an absolutely massive menu, so I've only gone for the stuff that has particularly bad reviews.
So, we've gone for 2 chicken tenders, a cheeseburger and chips, and a Pepsi Max. Now, to start with, the member of staff that served me was absolutely lovely. He was polite, he was friendly, he helped me make some choices and offered me some suggestions, and you just couldn't fault him. Then in terms of the restaurant itself, it was spotless in there. Really clean, really presentable. You had the chicken looking good. This place really is exceeding expectations. But what really matters is the food. So let's see what we've got. Good portion. And he's even given me an extra chicken tender. I ordered 2. I've got 3. So you can't complain about that. I should say that this came to £7, which I actually think is incredibly good value, especially considering this place is right beside a theme park. So you'd think the prices would be a bit exacerbated. Let's try the chips. They are really, really, really good chips. They're fresh, they're hot, they're crispy. They could do with a little bit of salt, but I did see some salt in there that you could add for yourself. They're really solid. Now the burger. Let's check out what's inside it. I've gone for salad and burger sauce in it. And for me, I don't like cucumbers, so I'm going to take those out, but I know a lot of people do, so that's completely fine. Got some onion in there, got some lettuce in there, and got some burger sauce. Could do with a little bit more cheese, but the bun's nicely toasted, the meat looks alright. This doesn't look too bad at all. It doesn't taste too bad at all as well. That's great. I don't know what people are talking about. That burger's fantastic. For a couple of pounds, I'm happy with that. But it's called Mad for Chicken, so the star of the show should be the chicken. I've gone for the tenders because people said they're particularly dry. They don't appear to be the moistest. Oh yeah, they are insanely dry, but they're really flavorful. They've got decent coating on them, loads of spices, loads of herbs. But I do think they might have been cooked earlier and just left in the hot cabinet for a while because they are really dry and they are really greasy, which is a bit of a letdown because the burger and chips is so good. They're still completely edible and they still taste nice. So maybe these ones just are a little bit old. It is the middle of the lunch rush, so who knows? Not for me, but I'd be willing to try them again. It's quite hard to find out what this place is actually rated online because if you look at the reviews, there is an abundance of 1-star reviews, but then you've got a load of 5-star reviews that, whenever you actually read them, are just complaints about not being paid for working here. So it's quite hard to figure it out. On TripAdvisor, it's got a 2.2, and on Google, it's got a 3. I think those are probably fair enough. I don't think it exceeds expectations too much. I do think the chicken's dry, but I do think the burger and chips are good. And I think the staff is lovely and the place is really clean. I don't feel like I'm in any danger of getting food poisoning or anything. So for me, I think that's probably fair enough. In fact, I'd probably go 3.5 out of 5.
So after trying some of the worst reviewed restaurants in the UK, it's safe to say that a lot of people exaggerate how bad things are, unless they've eaten at Square Pizza in Rotherham. It really is bad. Let me know if there's a restaurant near you that I should come and try. I'll see you next week.